I'm not going to be one to say the Pistons got totally hosed. They got hosed, but they hosed themselves, right? They had chances to win the game and chances to put it away. They're a young team. They didn't fully put their foot on the necks. Cade Cunningham hit that shot, that free throw line shot. 9 times out of 10, I think he makes that. But you learn through these experiences. And secondarily, for me, I will give credit. You have to give credit to Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Karl Towns. Incredible shot making.
What was that last name again?
Karl Towns.
Say with your chest. Karl-Anthony
Towns. There we go.
Was making. I just want to hear you say it. You say it because, man, was he making some big shots, deep shots, fall away over the backboard shots. Ridiculous shots. Oh man, did he come through?
You got to give him credit for. You have to give him big time credit for that. Jalen Brunson, who seems to do this every game. He gets hurt. He goes into the locker room. Who knows what happens when he goes to the locker room? We have no idea what happens in there. Comes back out, looks no worse for wear. I think let's talk about the officiating, or at least the officiating on the last play, because I do like the officiating as a whole in these playoffs, J.A. I like the fact that the officials are allowing more physical play. You're not going to get bailed out. Even though Jalen Brunson took flopping and that nonsense to a whole new level in New York, by and large, he has calmed a little bit of that down in the time since. I felt like, and I'm sure Dakota will have a photo of some screens, or maybe I'll shoot him some. Tim Hardaway, it was contact made by Josh Hart. Tim Hardaway was definitely fouled. The official who's right there, J.A., should see that. In my opinion, if you are sitting there right on the play, now maybe you can say maybe you didn't have the vantage point because it wasn't to Tim Hardaway's, left shoulder. Maybe on this left shoulder, you might have been closer to it, but you were right on top of the play. That's a call you got to make. Maybe J.A., the only grace I can give the officials is they made a decision coming out of that timeout. We're not going to call anything. We're not going to decide this. And we've seen situations like that, but that was an obvious and egregious foul. So obvious that they had to make a statement.
I disagree. Actually,
you don't think? So you don't think it was a foul?
I'm actually disappointed that Guthrie said afterward that it should have been a foul, because I thought if it was contact, it was marginal. But he said it went beyond marginal. I also think that Hardaway initiated the contact. So, man, I was reviewing. There's that last kind of overhead angle. I was sliding back and forth, reviewing, back to the left, back into the left. Got to give a shout out to Kevin Costner and JFK. I got a chance to meet him after the Clipper game the other night. Back and to the left. But I was toggling that video. To me, Hardaway leans in. You cannot say Hart jumped into Hardaway.
But he was in a vulnerable position when you jump forward
and goes across. But Hardaway, his initial move, when you shoot, this is for the people watching the video, does your elbow go up and shoulder go toward the hoop? Or do you shoot like this? Because Tim Hardaway gathered going back to the left like that. And then the follow through, he's clearly hunting for the foul because he turns by the end of his follow through, his shoulders are facing 45 degrees when he started. He's facing the far baseline. That's why he vanderjacked that shot so much and missed it wide to the right, because he wasn't even trying to shoot. He was hunting for the foul. So I have a lot less sympathy if he had maybe tried to put up the shot and, they'd called a foul maybe. But he's hunting for the foul in a game in which they have not been prone to calling fouls. You explain to me how someone that takes a normal shot ends up completely perpendicular to the basket.
What I will say is this. And I'm not a devil's advocate because I say the devil doesn't need an advocate, right? Josh Hart, even though his body is leaning maybe straight up, his arms came down. Now that's where I will say that Josh Hart put himself in a vulnerable position in trying to contest with the hands. Is that even if the rules
contact wasn't on the arms, right? The contact was with the body.
But the arms were reaching and making contact with the shoulder even straight up. So it was body and shoulder on the call from what I've seen. Now, I'm with you. Had he just gone straight up in a shooting motion to try to make the shot, maybe that's one thing. But if a defender puts himself in a vulnerable position, especially with the New York Knicks, who employ, I'm putting you in a vulnerable position, that's where you're looking at it and you say the Knicks don't have a leg to stand on. Even Josh Hart said, yeah, there was a lot of contact there. The bottom line of it is this, J.A. This is where you see a Knicks team that has elite shot making, right? Because I don't think the Pistons played bad defense. They didn't play great defense. Like Isaiah Stewart wasn't there. He was really good on Karl Towns. Because he's not there, Jalen Duren is not as strong and is not quick of foot to defend Karl. When they put Tobias Harris on him early in the game, Karl Towns finally realized, oh, I'm 7 feet tall and he's 6'9". Like, I'm going to work him out. The exceptional shot making there juxtaposed with Cade Cunningham and the turnovers. When you're up 11 in your building in the fourth quarter, you can't leave it in the hands of the officials. Like, that's the one thing, the biggest lesson I think that the Pistons will take from this series is that you don't want to leave something in the hands of the officials in the last second. That's why a lot of times you don't see guys going to the basket for last second plays and you see them trying to go to a pet spot on the floor, 1-2 dribble pull up and get a clean look as opposed to, man, I'm going to take it and put the onus on the official. That's usually not going to work out for you. That's my biggest takeaway from Detroit is that from a talent standpoint, they don't have the shot makers outside of Cade that the New York Knicks do. They probably are a little tougher than the Knicks because they have to be. But the Knicks, when they're fully deployed, they have more shot making, and they're still going to get swept by Boston in round two.
And Vinny, that's what makes me wonder if the Pistons can do this. We've seen in their past, particularly even the 04 team, you had Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton. So it's not like they couldn't generate any offense at all.
Sheed was the guy on offense that turned
unstoppable at times. Yeah.
Right.
But that still was a defensive identity team.
Yes.
And this team is a defensive identity team.
Yes.
And I just wonder if your primary identity can be defense in this day and age when you're going to have to keep up with the Celtics and their barrage of three-pointers, right? You're going to have to keep up with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and, he's going to start at 30 points, in his typical game, right? So, like, you got to score in this day and age. And it was funny, like, there was the Pacers game for a little bit, but, some of these games where it's low scoring, and it's funny, the Warriors and the Rockets have been so low scoring. So the Rockets are another team, they don't have the offensive firepower, and the Warriors, certainly without Jimmy Butler, are not a tremendous offensive team. And, in this day and age, I just don't think you can go far. And I think this Knicks series was a reminder, so here's Detroit down 3-1. I would say they've had the games the way they wanted them, right? The score and the pace has kind of been to their liking. It's been physical. And guess what? You're still down 3-1 because you lost to Karl-Anthony Towns and his shot making. And Jalen Brunson and his shot making.
I think it's important to note two things for people who may not know. Jaden Ivey, who would be their secondary shot creator, has been out since January 1st with the fibula injury. Their main defender on the interior, one of the best three-level defenders, I think Isaiah Stewart would have gotten all defensive votes from me had he qualified as far as minutes in games. He didn't, but I think as one of the best rim protectors, and not just shot blockers, but rim protectors, that changes the math a little bit.